of one man who persuaded his friends to watch every Godzilla movie ever made. This world is on the brink of destruction. We need you now, Godzillavangelists! Godzillavangelists, a Geek Stew Network podcast, produced and hosted by Ryan Sargent, featuring Sam Schlenker and Joanna Brodecki. So, my fellow Godzillavangelists, normally we've stayed in the past in the safe, beloved heyday of giant monster mayhem of the 50s and 60s. But this month, something shocking and exciting happened.
What?
Oh, Netflix, Godzilla.
It's a new one.
It is a new one.
Ryan's letting us watch a film from 2018.
It's like Christmas in January. When is this being released?
Probably February.
God
well,
goes crazy.
So, this feels extra special for me because this is the first time where we're watching it for the first time while Ryan watches it for the first time.
Yes, very true. I'm excited to hear some commentary.
I've never been so excited to hear what Ryan thinks of a movie. Or excited at all.
Wow.
This is
dull
all
life
first
you lead.
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of spontaneous because Netflix was vague about when they were going to drop this in America, and so all of a sudden, like a week out, they're like, "Yeah, it's coming out." So I was like, "Oh shit!
Also,
let's talk about the Godzilla anime."
Also, I spent about 5 minutes after I found the film still searching on Netflix because it said episode 1. I was like, episode? This can't be right. It's not a TV show I'm supposed to be watching.
Yeah, that was also a shock. I thought it was like a one-off.
Oh.
No, this is a 3-part series.
They're ready to keep rinse and repeat what they've done already a lot of.
As Godzillavangelists, we're obligated to watch all 3 parts.
Right.
Yay!
Which we're going to express our feelings on very soon.
Yes.
Ryan, the tone with which you're speaking of this one feels different from the ones we've covered
Ryan,
before.
I want your thoughts first.
Yeah.
And then I'll follow. But I just would love to, hear yours hot off the press.
And hear them you will. But first, I'd like to introduce our special guest for today. His name is Greg Jones.
Hey, how's it going?
He's a filmmaker, animator, and an anime lover, from what I hear.
Yeah, man. Glad to be here.
Thanks. I'm glad you're here. I have a question for you that I ask of all of our guests. Okay. What is your previous experience with Godzilla and all kinds of giant monster movies? What has your past with my favorite person been like?
So, most of my experience with Godzilla has usually been kind of in the general pop culture psyche, so to speak. What it is and what people think it is, which I think is kind of different from what the movie is if you actually sit down and watch it. But I'm cool with Godzilla. We're good people. We hang out from time to time. We chop it up. I also like the Chappelle Show flip on the Godzilla experience. That was also a great way to bring it back.
That is a great sketch.
We should do a side episode of that.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, that should be a mini-sode.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I'm glad that you're open-minded. I'm glad that you're not afraid to hang out with Godzilla, because we're going to be doing that a lot today, and it's going to be ugly. It ain't going to be pretty today.
Wait.
We're dealing with unknown territory today. The first animated Godzilla ever. It's crazy, but because this is still relatively recent, we're going to give everybody a chance to know our feelings on the movie without spoiling anything about it. So I'd like us to all sit down in the little Zen garden I've definitely prepared in real life. We're all definitely sitting in like a quiet little stone garden. There's bonsais around us. And I'd like us all to unfurl our scrolls one by one. And we've prepared a little poetry to describe our feelings on Godzilla, Planet of Monsters / Godzilla Monster Planet.
Woo! I don't know
All
how
right,
to react
everybody-
to that. Because
That's
we're
when
very
we get some
everybody's-
snaps.
Sip your tea, sip your sake.
Yum.
Who would like to go first?
I think we should kind of rotate around for if anyone has multiple. You know what I mean?
Well,
Sure.
wait, are they two separate ones? Because I wrote one haiku, one greater haiku that is two haikus.
That's
But
awesome.
they-
As did I.
I wrote 6 solo ones.
All right, well, I think you got to read like 3 of them first, right? Because otherwise we'll have nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, Joanna's the overachiever, the good girl.
Poetry just comes easy to me. So once I started, words don't stop, you know? Okay.
So, Joanna, I feel like you should just publish this, an entire book of poetry all about Godzilla.
Honestly, I will. If you can guarantee me 500 buys from fans, I will go ahead and just publish it on Amazon.
You know what? I'll look into that. I'll be your PR man.
Thank you so
But in the
much.
meantime, would you indulge us with a little preview?
Yes, I'll start with one of them first. Conspiracy plot. Yeah, I could be into that. Wait, where did it go? That's my first one.
I can't see, but I'm bowing to you. Give me a little bow.
Thank you so much. I'd like to do one more before moving on.
Absolutely.
Where's the female lead? Oh, where is the female lead? Where's the female lead?
That is some really impressive haikuing.
It's really plaintive. I can feel
Thank you so much.
the emotion of searching.
That's good.
Is searching an emotion? It's not, is it?
I could see the fine line of it being one.
I think at this point in time,
It's a
if you feel like
descriptive.
if it's emotion, then it's an emotion. It's whatever you want it to be.
That's very true.
That's a good point. This is an open-minded group here. We're experiencing things on a spiritual level, guys.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I know you have more to share, Joanna.
Yeah, everyone
but
else
does
take a
anybody
turn,
else
though.
want to
Let's-
jump in?
Yeah,
before
well,
you...
I'll share mine. It's one greater haiku, and it goes like this: razor leaves blowing, save an extra sharp one for angry boy captain. Technical jargon. Wait, time travel, aliens, big ol' Godzilla.
That was so waxing poetic. Your words. I mean,
Right.
great use of literature.
It's-
Mine are a little
more
more
of a,
plain.
More of an accurate synopsis than a capsule review, but
Um,
I'll accept it.
I didn't know you could use profanity in a haiku.
Oh, I used some in my next one. That was great, though. Snaps to you.
Thank you.
Yes, little bows for you. Do you have one, Greg?
I didn't. I figured I would defer to the regular crew. I don't want to steal any of your shine.
That's fair enough. Maybe you can do like a spontaneous lay down. Just
Oh, man. I
a
should
little
have
bit of
sent
a
you one of mine to read.
No, you're good. You guys are good. You're good. I want to hear yours.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
Ryan.
Mine is perhaps a little blunter than yours. Perhaps a little angrier
Ooh.
than your average haiku. I grew weary of Godzilla, Monster Planet. I cried of boredom. Nothing surprised me. Anime was a mistake. Bury this movie quite deep.
Wow.
Whoa.
No, it's
My
harsh.
heart.
This
Ryan,
is
you are-
tears of a huge fan.
I gotta say, I'm getting the vibe that I'm going to be like the lone supporter of this film in the
That's
group.
Really?
fine. I have
Okay.
some support, and then I have some things that
Right.
I don't.
To be fair,
I may have been.
I didn't say anything one way or the other in my haiku.
But it was beautiful.
I may have exaggerated somewhat for impact. You know, every great art needs a statement.
Totally.
but go ahead and finish yours, Joanna.
Okay. Oh God, that one guy is so fucking dramatic. Please, please shut him up.
Oh,
Okay.
Okay.
Another one.
Little bows, little bows.
Oh, so many plans. So many computer graphs. What is going on?
You know,
It's like you're reading my mind.
I have thoughts on that, actually. Some real thoughts. This was my big takeaway on the aesthetic of the movie, which is the combination of the 3D animation, and also all the graphs and all the planning, and like the style of animation with the kind of the cel-shaded look, kind of like 2D over 3D look, and those shadows felt very video game to me. And also not
Yes.
just that too, but also the kind of like the like entering a planet that is the terrain that has been designed by the villain, and we have to devise a entry way into the thing and do that. You know, like that felt extremely video game to me.
I agree.
You're not wrong. Did you get to all of your haikus, Joanna?
Oh, yeah. I have one I can share
Okay.
at the end, but
Wait,
let's
you have
hold
an
on.
alternate?
No, that seems like a good idea. We'll cap you off with one more haiku.
It's a point. It's about a point I've touched on in many of films. So I'm excited.
Okay, I'm excited to hear it too. But for our audience, we're going to go ahead and say that from now on, it's going to be a quick slide into spoiler territory. So
Yes.
accept it, be at peace with it.
But also
And here we go.
know that this is the first part of a series, so we're only spoiling the first act of your movie. So what are
True.
we really spoiling?
Not much, honestly. Especially because once you see the first 20 minutes, you really know the rest of the movie. All right, I'll stop being mean. I'm going to be open-minded again. So actually, I really liked the opening. Maybe it's because my expectations were low, but like I was like in the first scenes, I was like, oh, this is actually kind of interesting. I'm actually wondering what's happening, and it's telling us something about who this character is and what he believes. And let me back up here. So the beginning of the movie is this guy. We learn his name is Haruo later, and he's like holding a ship hostage or something, because he doesn't want this dangerous mission to happen. He doesn't want all these poor old people to go down into a risky planet.
These
Is
poor
that an
elderly people,
accurate
yeah, who have been
synopsis?
thwarted, who are like quoted as volunteers, but perhaps are not. And there's that conspiracy theory that I love and missed.
You know, I actually already kind of, as the movie went on, I had a question that then made me reconsider this open, and I feel like I may have poked a hole in it. But I almost don't want to get there too fast, but basically the conceit is that they are looking for a new inhabitable planet, correct?
Yeah.
Right.
And my question is, we find out that basically not that many, or not all of the people on this ship are humans, right? There are these two kind of other alien clans who are kind of on the ship too, correct?
Which took me
But they're-
real by surprise.
They're
That
kind
was-
of like tall humans. Like, for all purposes, like, I did not see them do anything spectacular.
No,
Right,
no,
they're a step down from Star Trek aliens, which are already basically human beings. They're even closer to human beings than that.
right. But my question is, so they're the idea is like, we're looking for an inhabitable planet, and then they kind of are
Yeah.
like, all right, we're not going to find it. We got to turn back to Earth. But the beginning is basically like, oh, this planet might be inhabitable. There might be some of the higher ups who may or may not be these aliens on this ship who are saying basically send the old people on there because it's totally inhabitable, and then it blows up. My question is, why don't they go to the planet where these aliens came from?
No, they said at the beginning their planet got destroyed, and that's
Yeah.
why they've been floating on these ships for forever.
Really?
Yeah.
Right.
Sounds like it makes so much more sense.
Okay,
They describe themselves as like a wandering fleet that's like witnessed all these other worlds be destroyed, but they can never somehow get to one to live on themselves.
And they like came to Earth to potentially live there, but then I was confused because then they realized they couldn't, and were like, "Don't worry, we'll also help you humans out." I was like, "That's very
Right.
nice." Like,
Well, they kind of
what?
showed up
Wow.
to seek asylum, so to speak, and what they were offering was, well, we'll see if we can handle this monster problem of yours in exchange for a place to stay. That was kind of the deal that they struck when they showed up.
Oh, okay. That makes
Right.
sense.
So we're kind of getting into it. So we have this in media res opening where you're like, what's going on? And then you get this long prologue that goes off the rails really quickly. Mostly in ways that I like, but definitely really off the rails. So it was just like, at some point in the future, Earth started being attacked by giant monsters all the time. And we couldn't really fight them very well, especially Godzilla. Godzilla was like the most powerful of all the giant monsters, and he basically rendered Earth uninhabitable.
Was
rather.
anyone like, "Oh, this is that scene from a Hercules movie"?
It's kind of like that.
Yeah. It was a bit
There's-
abrupt. It was very fast.
and another question I had, again, I'm not trying to poke holes, these are real questions, is, so, in theory, this one Godzilla made all of Earth uninhabitable,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So
apparently.
So like you could be in like Norway and you're like, boy, that Godzilla problem is making this life really tough.
Totally. He's no longer
Yeah.
just Japan.
Okay.
Right. I guess the idea was he was moving around so quickly that no city could essentially rebuild quickly enough.
Right.
It was just like devastating the world economy.
And this Godzilla
Okay.
was like pretty intense. So,
Yeah.
also, guys, can we take a quick bet? How many times do you think they said atomic breath in this film? It must have been 700.
It's up there. Not as much as they say magnet
That's true.
or electromagnet.
Okay.
So one thing I did kind of like as a nerd is that in the opening montage when they're showing the other giant monsters attacking, those are all like other giant monsters from the Godzilla series or related series. Not really the famous ones so much.
That's
but
cool, though.
Yeah. So I was happy to see some old favorites. Nobody you guys would recognize yet, but you will. You will.
I was looking out. I was looking out for Dr. Taco. Like
Just in the crowd somewhere.
the most fearsome of the monsters.
I was just immediately like, oh, this isn't a comedy. Okay.
No, it definitely that is an interesting. I mean, it's interesting because I haven't watched any of these of the newer, films, but there is a seriosity about it that really none of the ones we've watched so far have.
Yeah.
Where even the original, this is more. There's kind of a general gravitas to this that everything is very. There aren't jokes.
Oh
In
my
it.
God, the lines
I
are
would-
so heavy.
I would say that the original and maybe even Godzilla Raids Again are as serious as this, but apart from those, yeah, everything else has been getting more light and experimental and breezy.
Did you say
this
Godzilla
is-
Raids Again is it more serious than this or as serious as this?
It's attempting to be.
This is the one with the convict car, right?
Yeah.
All right. Just checking.
So basically we end up with Wall-E but with monsters instead of garbage. So all the humans and their alien freeloader buddies who showed up at the last minute are living on a ship flying around, but they're not adapting well. And basically they really want to go back to Earth.
Yeah, the aliens reminded me of the elves from. They were like Legolas, like his long lost cousin. Yeah, they were like cold, no water, no food. Also, again, I bring this question up. It's never answered in any film. How do they get that technology ready to go so quickly? To just take everyone on Earth up in space?
Well, I don't know if
I guess that was the
I don't know if it was
Oh, go ahead.
everyone. I think it was whoever they could fit.
I feel like it was still more than like, we could.
I think they only say there's 6,000 people on the ship.
Damn.
I think
Yeah,
that's
at
all
one
that
point
made it.
before they're about
Wow.
to do their thing, they said they're down to about 4,000. And like I said, if you imagine that there are billions of people, even in this version of Earth, there's no way they're putting billions of people on a single ship. So I really think it was whoever they could fit. And those were essentially the additional refugees. They all decided to link up because they probably had spent some time together trying unsuccessfully to stop this Godzilla menace.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. So the story is essentially holding together in a basic way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we catch up with Haruo again, and he's thrown in jail. And then this, I actually never quite picked up his name.
Oh,
his
I
alien
wrote
buddy.
it. Metiphius.
Yeah.
Metaphys?
That's right.
Metaphys? There's an immediate weird sexual tension
Yes,
between
I was
them,
like,
in my
they
opinion.
are in a relationship, and then nothing happened.
It's probably just a cultural thing, but it really, really feels like
He was
they want to
about to
screw
give
each
him a
other.
massage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't. I was giving it the benefit of the doubt, but there was kind of one shot that was very "Call Me by Your Name."
But yeah, he's a buddy, and he's really important. He's on the Central Command. Is that what they call the people who run?
Oh, the
human
Central Committee.
Government. Central Committee. And so he's a big fan of Haruo and is really gunning for him to get his chance to go back to Earth and kill Godzilla, because that's what Haruo wants. He's obsessed with the idea of going back to Earth and fighting Godzilla again.
Yeah, he's a little crazy.
So, I out of curiosity. So he's a kind of a priest figure, correct?
Yes.
There's
Yeah,
kind
I
of a
guess
religious
so.
bent to him. And is it that one of again? I'm not trying to poke holes. I'm purely trying to parse through this. He is one of the two alien clans.
Yes.
And is one of those two. It's not the one that tried to build Mechagodzilla. He's the other one. And is it that they are a priest clan?
I think that's it. It's like the Star Trek thing or the Star Wars thing, where every member of that species is all one way. So yeah, they're all really religious. They're like all priests or cultists or something.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Weird-
not a cult.
weird
It's
vibes,
all
weird
of
vibes.
Is it a cult
I
if it's your
love
whole
their-
planet?
I guess it's not. I guess then it's just the religion. But I love their praying pose because it looks like a facepalm. It looks like the kind of thing that when you put your hand on your forehead when you're really frustrated and like just trying to take a second to figure out what you're going to do next. That's what their prayer looks like. We also learn about this point something that one of your haikus touched on, Joanna, which is why have thousands of years passed on Earth? Because we see Haruo leaving the planet. He's a little boy, and then when we catch up with him again, he looks like he's about, I don't know, 25.
Yeah, so I actually had some thoughts on that. Well, first of all, I thought that was pretty cool, just in of itself, because it reminded me quite a bit of, Interstellar. It reminded me of Interstellar and time dilation, where time flows differently depending on where you are and with gravity and that sort of thing. So, and I think this is pretty extreme here, but I think that makes the story a lot more interesting because at this point, it's very clear that things are different. So when they come back, like, nothing of what they remembered from being there should be relevant.
Right. Yeah,
That-
I agree.
That's my takeaway also, and I couldn't tell you if that was said directly in the movie, but I think because of Interstellar and also because of one particular short film that someone I did that I went to college with that he made that was the same idea. I just kind of took that for granted that it was because they're traveling faster than light or something, thus time is different.
Okay.
I don't know if they actually explain it, but I didn't mind it either because I actually kind of liked as just like a, just kind of as a story point to kind of basically go back and things are dramatically different. Where it is now kind of like Planet
It's like
of the
Jurassic
Apes.
Park. Yeah, yeah.
So I was on board for that myself also.
All right, I can accept that. I was just thrown off because you're right. I don't believe there's any explicit
There's not,
explanation.
and I think there's a lot of things like that in the film where they're going to discuss it as if you should just pick up on it, but they're not really going to draw attention or explain it. I mean, but there's so much exposition in the film.
So much. Yeah.
There's quite a bit, and I think at the end of the day, it's just because this is what they had to do to get to the story they wanted to tell, and so they
Right,
they,
like,
they
I
blow
think-
through it. Sorry, go ahead.
I think it lacked. No, you're good. I think it lacked a lot of character development as a result. But I mean, we'll see what happens in the next two.
That was my my biggest thing too. And what's funny is so I'm not particularly an anime fan, and so I kind of went in being like, oh boy, this might just be something that I just can't like in a weird way. But what my takeaway was like, there were things about kind of the idea that I kind of like as a way to set up an interesting kind of new take on Godzilla. That was my takeaway though, was like it was basically all I mean, the whole movie was exposition, and
The whole movie was explaining their plan.
Right, which isn't necessarily, and they kind of gave it's like people want it bad enough that I think you can kind of get away with a certain amount of exposition and kind of only saying technically what you're going to do and why, not even why, just what you're going to do, and this is what it's going to, this is what has happened, this is what will happen. But it is tricky when I don't know a whole lot about any of the characters, and that's the only thing I will say.
Especially that guy was so dramatic. Like the lead from the start, he did not slow down at all. Like 80% of his lines were like, "We must do this for humanity, don't you see?" Like everything. And I was just like, if there's no character relationship around him, like I just didn't have a reason to care about him particularly. And that's why, as my haiku stated, I found him a bit obnoxious. But
yeah, he was always at 100. This guy,
yeah,
he was like Anakin Skywalker, constantly troubled. Basically, he convinces the council to follow his plan to go back to Earth.
Oh wait, quick interjection. The fact that he put a anonymous thesis out there in the server for all of them to read, that was something too. I was like, okay, cool, I see where this is going, but then it kind of stopped there. That was like the last of the points that I liked. So
Haruo somehow convinces the council, and maybe somebody can explain this for me, because I don't want to drag this movie through the mud where it doesn't deserve. I don't want to lose my credibility. But as I recall that scene ending, the leader of the humans is like, no way, that's not
correct.
possible.
Yes.
And then the very next scene, they're getting ready to do it.
I was watching it with my friends. They were literally like, we will not do this. And the next scene, it's like 600 men building machines.
I took that a different way. I took that as kind of like in romantic comedies when the guy is like, yeah, we're gonna, you're gonna take me out for dessert, and she's like, no, I would never do that in a million years. And then you cut to them eating dessert, and she
totally.
looks
It was just like not the genre
Thought
for
it was a
it.
gag
It was like,
at
is
it.
this funny? Like, is this a joke?
I actually am serious. That's I think what that was. I think it was like, we can't afford 600 men, and then cut to they had to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of took it as him expressing his feelings, not a command or an order. Like that was like him stating what people need to know, which is this is an extremely expensive thing, like human and other race-wise, that you're trying to do, and make it really clear that like he's really against it. But I think everyone was pretty sold, because I mean they're in dire straits on that ship. Their plans aren't working.
It's like,
you have a point. Everyone else did seem convinced. It's just a very awkward note to end that scene on, because it makes it very
They
confusing.
could have
when
added
you
one
immediately
line,
pick
literally
up.
like, we can't do it, and then someone saying, well, we have to. Like, it would have been just very easy.
Just end on
Simple
somebody who's more
storytelling.
convinced, and then I wouldn't have been like, huh? But anyway, they agree, and they go back to Earth, and they get ready to land on the planet and start Operation Kill Godzilla.
I don't think that's what the operation was called.
It
No, it
was. I read
wasn't.
the papers.
It was at first I thought it was Operation Shatter Godzilla like a tuning fork, because that's what their
Right.
plan sounded like to me. It was like, yeah, we have to match the resonance of the magnet he has
The
in
plan.
his dorsal.
The plan to me sounded like, okay, I'm reading the first sentence. Okay, the second I got it. Okay, the third, not sure. Okay, I'm gonna zone out now until it's done.
Is it like, because he's kind of, that plan is a little bit like a raid on a Death Star or something, where
Yeah,
it's like, he has a
definitely.
shield generator room, and the only way to get into it is through this trench that happens to be up his back. And I'm dead serious.
No, I mean, it's
Like,
exactly
Yeah.
what it is.
And to skip ahead slightly, it plays out pretty well once you actually see it. You're like, oh, okay, that's
Right.
what's supposed to be going on. But up until then, I wasn't clear
Also, they had
at
about
all
20
how
variations.
they were planning to kill Godzilla.
They spent probably 40 minutes of the film explaining the plan in a way that didn't much make sense. The graphs were really pretty. I was like, I love that heat mapping. That looks great.
But yeah, also about this time, we meet some of the other minor characters, including Leland, I guess is the name of the guy
Yes.
who's leading
He's my
the
favorite.
expedition. I like him too. And then there's what's her name? The one female
The one
character?
female-
Do you remember?
No, I don't. I don't remember. Okay, well, first of all, I recently saw Darkest Hour, and I was like, all right, in the war room, all dudes. And then the whole time they're planning all this stuff, I'm like, all right, all dudes in the war room, hanging out. You know, to be expected. But when this chick comes along, I'm like, okay, she's pretty cool. Maybe she's going to be like Sigourney Weaver, alien, you know what I mean? Like doing some boss ass shit. And then she's talking to him, and she's like, they're walking through the forest, and she's like, I actually wanted the opportunity to speak with you because when that ship blew up, you know, my grandpa was on it, and there are rumors floating around that it was intentional, not an accident. And they built up this angry guy who was like threatening to blow up the ship because he said that, oh no, it's like the government doing this. Like, we can't trust them. They're going to blow up they're trying to kill these elderly
Right.
people. And he turns to her and goes, I choose to trust in humanity. There's no conspiracy theory. Like, what? Of all the times, of all the things to say, it was so wrong, and it was so not fun and dull. And
I essentially agree with you, because this was the moment where I thought it was going to come back to me, because I like the beginning.
yeah,
And then I was bored for a
Yeah.
while. And then she floats this idea, and I'm like, okay, that's interesting.
oh, I was
Like,
ready
what
for
if-
the elf aliens the whole time to like be evil, like something's gonna happen, and just nothing.
Well,
just really fell flat.
I don't know if they're not evil, because by the end of the
There's
film,
still time.
yeah, it seems like this was part of a larger, some sort of larger conspiracy,
Someone knew about the second Godzilla and like did not bring it up.
or they at least knew
Until
that Godzilla that they saw was not the one that they were looking for.
I still wish they would have kept him on the conspiracy train because I think he'd be important for it.
Yeah, because he's already kind of
Yeah.
a rebel. Why not take that to its logical conclusion?
Right. But maybe he will, follow up in the next one on it.
Yeah. But also, speaking of him and his
Oh my
overdramaticness,
god.
my least favorite part of the movie was when he started crying out loud over the building fossils. Like, they see the
Oh.
buildings, and all these plants have grown over them, and it's like, they're not really buildings anymore. They're just the shapes of buildings where the plants remember them. And he starts crying, and I actually started laughing.
When he goes,
'cause I was so embarrassed for
this
him.
planet has always remembered us. Our Mother Earth is a planet for humans. I was like, bitch, really? Like, you were on the planet for such a short period of time comparatively. This is not your planet. You are wrong, and I don't support your cause, and I hate you.
Also, Godzilla is part of the planet. He's part of
He has been
nature.
there for a long ass time. Yeah. What?
Oh my
man.
goodness.
You know what's funny? I actually liked that moment quite a bit. I thought that was pretty cool.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Oh, I'm sorry to drive the dagger.
See, when he dropped the necklace at the beginning of the film, I was like, and then someone stepped on it. I was like, oh god, I've seen this 800 times in film. You know, I was like, oh, it's gonna come back.
Is there a level, because I don't know, when I like that moment, to me, my instincts were that it was overly dramatic,
Yeah.
and there was like in terms of like my aesthetic of movies, when they're like, oh, they took on the shape of the buildings, and like that is where I'm like say it, I get it, and like, oh, that's a really interesting emotional beat. It's the crying about it is the part that pushes it over the top for me. But is that kind of an aesthetic, a genre aesthetic that I don't know?
I don't think so.
It sure
definitely
is.
Even the hyper emotions, because everything in
Right.
anime tends to be some version of caricature, including the way people share their emotions. Like subtlety is not really the thing where where animation in general tries to traffic in. Like you can find it, but it's not common. Usually, it's the opposite.
It is a good point. I think there's some things around it that still make me feel pretty secure in my complaints, but I'll admit that it's definitely, it could be it was close to being a good moment, because I agree with Sam. I like the idea of the plants forming the shapes of the buildings. It just went.
Yeah, I thought
it went too far and became embarrassing.
I thought it.
Sorry,
No,
Joe.
no, you're good. I thought it looked really cool, and yeah, I loved that part up until he got emotional. But I think again, going back to the fact that he was playing such a high state the entire time, so that an emotional moment for him, it wasn't. He was like always like that. It wasn't as touching. It wasn't something that broke him. He seemed to be like getting broken and upset or emotional about everything, So I think had he not been so emotional the whole rest of the time, it might have been a little more earned.
No, I think that's fair. And I mean, for me, I kind of caught the vibe that maybe he's shouldering not just the emotions of himself, but of the human race. And that's kind of what's coming out in his actions.
Also, his grandpa did just die.
Yeah.
That's true. He's a little tender.
Probably for good reason.
You know what? Honestly, I'm glad you're here today, Greg,
Yeah.
because even though I totally disagree with you, you're laying down some really cool perspectives,
you are.
and you have a point with everything you're saying.
Thank you.
There's definitely I can see how people would enjoy this movie. I just I had trouble getting
No, and I get it. I mean, in
myself.
the grand scheme of anime films, it's not the one that I would tell someone to watch to get into anime, or like this is the example. But
Right.
the way that I look at it is, if you have Netflix and you need stuff to watch, because some people, they'll watch a thing or two, but a lot of people watch Netflix like they watch TV, which is all the time, and they just burn through content. And you're sitting there and you get to watch this cool thing where you're in space and you're dealing with the idea of what it means to engage in interstellar travel, and what the Earth would look like if it was changed, and like how we've treated the planet and how that actually can come back and hit us in a tangible way, in a far less abstract way. Like, it's just a cool thing to kind of have compared to like what kind of garbage you could be getting to fill your time.
I agree. And Ryan, not to offend you, but I would watch this film 100 times before ever watching Rodan again.
That's
I
would watch it
I would
100
watch it-
times on repeat before watching Rodan.
oh, poor Rodan. I would rather watch Rodan, but it is close. It is close. for me.
I was curious to hear Ryan's thoughts, because that was kind of my takeaway, was like it may not, if someone is a Ryan and is a just a massive fan of Godzilla, that just because that is what you like doesn't mean you'll necessarily like this. I feel like this definitely felt
It's a
like
different vibe,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And even the things it kind of does well, I think, or even like fundamentally is about, are not the things that any of the ones we've watched so far are about. Was kind of my feeling. So it was kind of it felt only tangentially related to Godzilla to me.
I agree.
Right. And
Felt
we
more
will
like a
come back
space
around to
adventure,
that.
yeah.
Because most of my issues have nothing to do with my perspective as a fan, but especially once we get to the ending, the last few minutes, then I start to, my geek hackles raise up, and I'm like, don't do that to Godzilla. Yes. They land on Earth and start walking around, and very quickly Haruo's camp is attacked by these, I guess you could call them little Godzillas, you could call them dragons, raptors,
Yeah, raptors.
whatever you want. They're killable. They certainly kill them, but they're tough, I don't know, SUV sized monsters. Is that fair to is that a good size comparison?
They're mid-sized sport vehicles.
Yes, mid-sized sport vehicle sized monsters. And they really smash up the camp. So it's a big setback.
Also, everyone seemed
and-
like very unprepared at the possibility of something else that wasn't on their radar could come out at them, and I was like, "Come on, guys! Like, you know better than that."
They do seem very unprepared.
They're like shocked. They're like, "What?"
Which is why the next scene, maybe I'm being uncharitable, but I believe it's supposed to feel like a good debate where Haruo is debating with Leland. He's like, that was tough, but we gotta press on. We gotta continue with the plan. And Leland's like, fuck no, we gotta get out of here. But I'm totally on Leland's side.
Me
on
too.
This. He points out
I'm like,
that
yeah. Sorry, you go.
he points out that the plants, the animals, and the water are all inhospitable. So like Earth isn't even that good of a planet for them anymore. And I'm like, you're right. Like this is really, really
Yeah,
tough.
and that's when for
And
Haruo, what is that his name?
yeah.
When I'm like, I really can't be on his side. Like that guy literally just said everything is inhospitable here. It's changed so much. You guys got destroyed by not even Godzilla's atomic breath. So
Especially when they call him a coward like 5 minutes later, I'm like, no, he's being totally reasonable. Poor Leland. Did you say that you liked him, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, it mainly because of that scene. To be honest, I was on Team Leland also. I mean, this is tied into a different thing, but and this is absolutely a genre aesthetic. But it was just shocking to me how many people in high command or who really had a lot of sway were 17 years old. But I know that is definitely an aesthetic thing that I will never get over,
Yeah.
but I should grow up. But I'll do it one
I was
day.
ready for what's his name from Star Wars to pop out. Even those like motorcycle flying things they were driving. Not driving, flying in the air, and the sound all felt very Star Wars.
Do you know what that reminded me of, actually? I see Star Wars. It reminded me of Atlantis, the Disney movie.
Yeah.
Those little flying scooters were very Atlantis to me.
No seatbelts either. No one fell off, you know? I was very
No,
impressed.
they're the motorcycles of the sky.
Right.
One person did fall off. However, it took an entire Godzilla to knock
Right.
them off. So they seem pretty stable. So yeah, they prepare to evacuate, and Godzilla shows up and destroys one of the ships and messes with them. And but maybe somebody who understood this better than I can jump in here. They accomplished something. They put like some kind of tracker on Godzilla.
They found
or,
out when his shield does something?
Yeah, I mean that was essentially the entire plan, because in that conversation that you mentioned, the tall guy, he essentially logicked Leland back into accepting Haruo's original plan, because it was the only option they had. Even with them deciding to retreat, they had to stick with the same plan. And so the idea was that, which I think is cool, is that basically the reason why they had trouble with Godzilla is because he was invulnerable, and they couldn't figure out why, because they threw everything at him and they couldn't stop him. And he's like, no, it's not arbitrary. There's a reason to it. If we use some science and some good planning and, some expertise, we can actually figure out how to get past his invulnerability. And that's what that whole thing was, figuring out what it was, where it was coming from, and then getting around it. I mean, it's similar to Smaug and the
Gotcha.
finding out where the little hole is where you can hit him with the black arrow. It's the same idea.
Gotcha. So it was looking for Godzilla's Achilles heel, basically.
And
But in this fight, Leland tragically loses his life. And then I thought it was so nice that Space Pope fought so hard for his boyfriend to be in charge. He was like, that was the part where I was like, really like, they have something going on.
Space
He's
Pope.
just like so supportive. He's a great SO. He just sticks up for his man and is like, look, Haruo should be in charge, even though I'm technically second in command. My boy.
But
Yeah.
He should do
is
it.
that some greater conspiracy situation? Because I still feel like he's puppet mastering something.
I agree.
I know. I am waiting for it. I thought for a second that they were gonna be like, "Peace out, ditching you people on Earth, LOL," and then I was like, "That would, they'd be left to fend for themselves." But nope, they didn't take advantage of any of
it's
it.
possible we could. It's possible we could still get a twist.
Hopefully.
But as is, it just seems like a nice supportive thing
Yeah.
to do. And so Haruo launches the plan, which
Gives a big old Shakespeare
is-
speech, big old Shakespeare monologue
Yes.
at the beginning.
really lays it out. Does Shakespeare / Independence
Yes.
Day. And everybody hops on their little space bikes
Boop, boop, boop.
/
Moped time.
robot suits. Yeah. And so the space bikes fly around Godzilla and shoot at him and annoy him. And they drive him into a canyon and they blow up the canyon, which I liked because it was very much like King Kong
Oh,
versus
totally.
Godzilla.
I was like, are they dropping him
They
in a
trapped
hole
him
right
in the
now?
pit.
Oh man, if King Kong had showed up, I would have been all in.
Yeah, me too.
Because
Slow
Tired
down.
King Kong.
It's Planet of the Monsters.
Yeah, he could be there.
Right. Maybe he's hiding.
Oh, maybe he'll come out in episode 2.
Oh man.
I would die. I would get so invested again. But yeah, they trap him in the rocks, and then all the people in the robot suits jump on Godzilla, and they inject him with probes, EMP probes, that resonate with his frequency and
Sounds
and
good to
blow him
me.
up.
It's all very Death Star.
Yes. I'm actually cool with what Godzilla looks like in this movie. Some of the fans were not so into it. But I think he looks pretty good. And there's some shots where he has a little bit of humanity. He looks a little bit like a sumo wrestler, like he hunches down and he looks out of the corner of his eye at ships when he gets pissed off at
Yeah, I
them.
thought he was great.
And I think they do a good job of making this Godzilla really very clearly seem like a threat that's out of their league. Like, without it, like the way that he's able to, or she is able to kick off that atomic breath that, we keep talking about so much. And how fast it is and like how unable you can really defend yourself against that. It's
Yeah,
all,
like to knock down planes.
yeah, it's all really kind of terrifying. Like you get it, like you get why, you get all of it, because it's not just, oh, there's a monster and he's big, but shoot him. It's like, no, like this is something else. Like whatever this is a whole other thing.
Totally.
Right. He's certainly bigger than he's ever been before.
And his atomic
And
breath
as we
is fast.
Yeah.
And it goes
Yeah,
far.
there's not much charging up, and yet it fires out like a rocket. It's not so much a beam or a spray as we've gotten used to in some of these older movies.
It's like a laser that destroys Princess Leia's home planet.
But as I alluded to, my geek hackles started to get messed up a little bit here because I'm like, I realized what they were starting to say about Godzilla, where they were basically like, he's like a big magnet. He runs on electricity. So they've whitewashed the whole atomic testing origins of Godzilla, which I can live with. They've done that before. And, past a certain point, it didn't really matter in the older movies anyway. But it's one thing that's, like, very key to his identity is he's an atomic mutation. He's a product of man's folly in some way. And so to have that wiped away was like, not sure I like that. And then they're able to blow him up, which is very un-Godzilla like, because one thing about I know there's still a twist yet to come, but it's still un-Godzilla like to be able to blow him up just like kablooey.
Yeah.
It takes away a lot of the majesty, and it takes away even more when we learn that there's more than one Godzilla, which instantly makes Godzilla much less special, because there's not just one Godzilla. There's not one.
Didn't they kind of allude to the fact? I mean, I got it because it was like, if it's over 10,000 years, it makes sense that there might be another. But didn't they kind of allude to the fact that, yes, their strategy worked, but the second Godzilla that they see, that he's like the original one and the strongest and going to be even harder to defeat.
Yeah, arguably the second one is the one known as Godzilla, and this other one is just an offspring.
I don't know, like, you can change things about Godzilla. You can play with who he is, and he's meant so many different things over these movies, as you guys will learn as we continue to watch them. But at a certain point, you start to ask, well, why is this a Godzilla movie? Why isn't this just some other monster?
Right.
Where's the connection to what Godzilla is and means and what's special about him? And I started to wonder at the end if they were dropping too many of those things. It felt like they could have replaced him with
I was like,
else.
is this one, like, I was like, is this about the environment that they're hitting on? Like, I was ready for, like, maybe Al Gore to show up for parts of it, but then they kind of left it. Yeah, I was kind of like, I mean, they did that religious guy. What did he say? Oh, king of destruction. Like, when humans get too high on themselves and the king of destruction comes through. But, yeah, I don't think he served as strong of a symbol as he does in some of the other films. Every line in that film, a lot of them just felt like, I don't know, they're like, life's true nature is found in change. They were just trying to like drop wisdom out that you might get in like a fortune cookie, or if you like put a quarter into a fortune teller thing and like get a card out.
This is the part that I chalk up to genre, because I like, that's the kind of stuff that just drives me crazy. But I also know I just took it for granted because that's what I've seen in movies like this.
Right.
But yeah, it like, not my style per se, with the very poetic and declarative kind of like not, there's no, you're saying the subtext, I guess.
Yeah. So part 2's coming.
Do we know when?
And we will watch it, but little mixed about that.
But is it true that Greg brought us more on board with it than we were when we started?
True.
Because that's what it feels like.
He's got to come back for the next one.
Oh, sure.
I think so.
I'd be happy to.
But also, did you guys see the scene after the credits?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes, I was just about to ask about the post-credits scene, yeah. So, just to make it clear for the audience, what happens is Haruo wakes up. He's in, like, some kind of cave hut, and this tribal woman with a mask takes her mask off and stares at him, and then it's like, boom, and you go, cut to black.
Without the sound effect, though. It's completely silent.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Some people have taken this to be an indication that Mothra will be in the next one.
Okay.
I think that's
That
a
is
stretch.
Big
That's
old
a stretch for
yeah.
me. Because I don't want to get worked up about it, because that would be exciting. But they're like, oh yeah, tribal woman. Mothra is definitely in the next one. I'm not so sure. I think these are just like Earth survivors. People have been living on Earth, coexisting with Godzilla. It's interesting. I guess if I was going to make a wish list for the next one, I would love it if Haruo kind of had to contend with a new idea of like, well, what if we could coexist with the monsters? What if we didn't have to try to destroy them. I'm not sure that's where it's going to go, because I know for sure that Mechagodzilla's in the next one. That's like a given, and that seems very militaristic.
Yeah, that does. I definitely want the conspiracy chick to be back in it, and also they kept hitting on this like, you are our hero, you are our savior. So I kind of want the religious element to get a little weirder and more involved, but we'll see if it does.
I think what I want to see in the next one is like a character goes to cut down a Christmas tree, and then the Christmas tree cuts them down.
Oh man, there was not one single joke in this movie, and you know how I feel about films that have no jokes. It's like, come on.
I'm not against it, but as I think is clear at this point, it didn't earn being so serious for me.
No.
But now is the time where we say who we would recommend this movie to.
I mean, I had Charlotte and her boyfriend watch it with me because they were here. I mean, kind of similar to what you said before about, people who are just watching on Netflix. Like, if you are interested in anime and Godzilla, it's worth checking it out and hearing your thoughts and opinions. I might recommend it to my boyfriend, but of my close friends, there aren't, there are many other anime films, again, that I would recommend first.
No. Sam, do you have an obscure high school friend to recommend this one
Yeah.
to?
You know what's terrible is I didn't have one in mind. Oh, you know what, though? I do have one.
I knew.
This is off the dome. There was a guy who was super cool and super smart and was in the film club with me who, I just feel like this is the kind of movie he'd like. So Daniel, if you're listening, I just feel like you'd like this. I don't know, but basically he was like super smart and funny and would make like puppet videos or like perform things in class that like I think were like Kaufman level like deep comedy where like everyone, all these like cool high schoolers like didn't understand why this kind of like shy boy would do puppet shows that weren't discernibly funny in class. But I am wholeheartedly convinced that it was like that there was an extra layer of comedy to it. And he also he had a rolling backpack and he'd run down the halls with the rolling backpack.
Yeah.
And it was like you get out of the way or you're gonna get hit by it.
I had a kid like that too.
Yes, this is hitting too close to home.
Is that you?
I didn't quite do these things, but I was very close to the people that did, and I'm very similar.
Legitimately the best, and I just feel like he'd like this, and I think it's the sci-fi bent to it. It's almost not because it's a Godzilla, but because of the sci-fi bent to it and the video game bent to it.
Yeah,
that's who I'm recommending it to.
I feel like if I was going to seriously recommend it on that, it would be on that plane, which is just like if you like
sci-fi.
If you like moderately smart sci-fi movies with a lot of wacky ideas and interesting technology, this is for you. This is a good way to eat up 90 minutes. But as a Godzilla fan, I'm not so into it.
Yeah, I think that sounds fair to me, to be honest. I totally get it.
Greg, who would you recommend it to?
So, I'm in a similar boat where, like, I don't know who would love the film. I do have a friend, a classmate I went to school with for grad school, who I work with from time to time. She's a fellow visual effects artist. And I recommend it to her, and then she'd call me, and she'd tell me that she didn't like it, and she'd tell me all the reasons why she didn't like it. We'd have, like, a good half-hour conversation of just hearing her complain, and it'd be great.
Yeah.
This movie was written by somebody who has quite a resume in the anime world. I don't know how much will be familiar to you guys, but I know even from my limited experience with anime that this is some serious nerd cred. He wrote and created Madoka Magica.
Oh, wow.
Psychopaths, Fate Zero.
Really?
And the new, well, maybe not the most recent, but one of the recent Kamen Rider series as well. and he's won the Tokyo Anime Award. So he's definitely a really prestigious figure in that world. His name's Gen, I believe. Yeah, Gen Urobuchi.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're into those series, I'm betting you'll like this one. And I just have one more question to ask you guys before we sign off today. So this is the first animated Godzilla movie, which means on a very silly level, he can now interact with any other animated character. So if you could put him in a crossover with any animated character ever, who would unite this animated Godzilla with?
What I want to see is Godzilla combined with Clifford the Big Red Dog. So
Tying it
here's
back.
this large monster, and how are we making him the fun, friendly family pet? And he loves it. You know, it's not like he's like trapped in a cage. He's like just happy hanging out with that girl at the end of the movie. She's like taking him to kindergarten.
It would be a pretty hilarious scene if like Godzilla is fighting Clifford, and Clifford, like in true dog fashion, thinks it's just dogs playing, but
Yes.
Godzilla's trying to kill Clifford.
Oh, like my sister's dog one time is like a tiny little lab, and we were in the woods and saw a grizzly bear, and the dog like really tried to go and like thought that she would win.
Oh my
but
god.
She was on the leash. We were holding her back, but like it's like you don't stand a chance, stupid dog.
Right. But Clifford's really big, so
And
just
so
play
nice.
fighting can hold his own.
That would be quite adorable. And I was also thinking of How to Train Your Godzilla, just like the crossover
That's good.
with them just flying and riding on different giant monsters. Make it DreamWorks. The opportunity is there.
Make it. The time is now. Make it.
Of all of the monsters, though, to ride on the back of, Godzilla would be not fun. Like
No, you'd have to sit.
slow, not a lot of flying.
Also, quite the climb to get up there.
Oh yeah, well,
Khaleesi
Plus-
is like quick on that dragon. It lowers its neck. It's like boom. Godzilla is like a long haul.
plus if you're riding on his back and you hum at just the right frequency, you get sucked into his back and you destroy his shield.
Yeah, terrifying.
True.
That's my answer. I got nothing. I don't know who I'd cross him over with, but
It's never gonna get any better than that.
Yeah, I would say overall this movie, like, meh for a movie, but fun to discuss and point out its flaws.
Yeah.
And its merits.
Yes. And if you want to let us know your thoughts on Godzilla Monster Planet, please do leave a comment on our Facebook page, tweet at us, leave a review on iTunes or YouTube, wherever you're listening to this. And we may just read it on the show. I've read a lot of them recently, so I don't think I have a new one today. But as soon as we do, you could very well hear your message on our show.
Woo!
And with that, I'm going to bid you all a happy good night, so we can all
Adieu.
dream of our own monster planets.
happy good night, everybody.
Happy good night.
Happy dreaming.
Happy good night. Godzillavangelists, a Geek Stew Network podcast, is brought to you by me, Ryan Sargent, and my friends, Joanna Brodecki and Sam Schlenker. We'd like to thank our fabulous editor and mixer, Rachel Deering. All our incredible music is composed by Robert Mai, and our wonderful artwork is drawn by Cassidy Stone. Special thanks to our families, friends, and the wonderful artists who made the movies we talked about today. Godzillavangelists is a satirical, critical work, not affiliated or endorsed by Toho, Legendary Pictures, or anyone behind the Godzilla series. Visit our website at GodzillaVangelists.com. We're also on Twitter at GodzillaCast and Instagram at GodzillaVangelists. If you prefer to listen to us online, we have a YouTube channel, and the latest episode is always on SoundCloud too. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you join us next episode. In the meantime, Keep spreading the word of Godzilla.